3 days after the council meeting, the combined fleet gathered at Station Omega. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. 28,000 warships from 12 different species floated in formation around the station. Each ship was loaded with weapons. Each ship carried soldiers ready to fight. The sight was supposed to inspire hope. But Captain Yuna felt nothing but sadness as she looked out the window of the Talon. Her ship was docked at the far end of the station, away from the main fleet. It was a small vessel, barely 100 meters long. Compared to the massive battlecruisers and carriers around it, the Talon looked like a toy, a child's plaything lost among giants. "Captain," said a voice behind her. It was Sue, the ship's engineer. She was a small woman with short black hair and grease stains on her uniform. "The council has requested our presence at the strategy meeting." Yuna nodded. "Tell the others." We go together. The crew of the Talon assembled in the narrow hallway of their ship. There were 12 of them in total. Yuna knew each of them like family. Sue was the engineer, the one who kept the ship running. She could fix anything with nothing but wire and determination. Tay was the pilot, young but gifted. He could fly through an asteroid field blindfolded and come out without a scratch. Yoon was the navigator. She had memorized every star map in the galaxy. She always knew where they were and where they needed to go. June was the weapons officer. He was quiet, serious, and never missed a shot. Mina was the communications expert. She could crack any code, translate any language, and listen to conversations happening light years away. Day was the medical officer. He had gentle hands and a calm voice that could soothe any pain. Hannah was the science officer. She understood things about the universe that most people could not even imagine. Q was the security chief. He was built like a mountain and moved like a shadow. Bio was the youngest, barely 20 years old. He was the backup pilot and Tay's student. Era was the second engineer, Sue's right hand. She was always smiling, even when things looked dark. June was the tactical analyst. He could look at any situation and find the one weakness everyone else missed. And finally, there was Yuna herself, the captain, the one who had to lead them all into the heart of darkness. They walked through Station Omega together, 12 humans in simple gray uniforms. Around them, alien soldiers from a dozen species moved in large groups. They wore elaborate armor and carried advanced weapons. They looked at the humans and laughed. "Look at them," a Draxian soldier said to his companion, loud enough for the humans to hear. "The mighty human fleet. All 12 of them." More laughter followed. Yuna kept walking. Her crew kept walking. They did not respond. The strategy room was a massive chamber filled with holographic displays and floating screens. The commanders of the combined fleet were already there. General Korath stood at the center, his scales gleaming under the lights. High Commander Velos was beside him, along with Admiral Plix and a dozen other military leaders. When the humans entered, the conversation stopped. Every alien eye turned toward them. "Ah," Korath said with a thin smile. "The human delegation. Please, join us. We were just discussing our attack formation." Yuna led her crew to a spot along the wall. They stood together, watching and listening. The holographic display showed the Void Swarm. It had grown since the last report. The dark cloud now covered an entire sector of space. Inside that cloud were millions of creatures, each one a monster designed to kill and consume. "Our plan is simple," Korath explained. "We hit them with everything we have. The Draxian heavy cruisers will form the front line. The Meridian fighters will provide support. The Centauri carriers will launch bombing runs. Wave after wave, we push into the swarm until we reach the center." "Casualties?" Velos asked. Korath's expression did not change. Estimated 60% losses in the first wave. Possibly higher. 60%. That meant almost 17,000 ships destroyed. Millions of lives lost. Just in the first wave. Acceptable, Admiral Plix said coldly. If it stops the swarm, it is acceptable. Una felt Mina stiffen beside her. She put a hand on her crew member's arm. Stay calm, the jester said. Wait, what about the humans? Another commander asked. It was a Veluxian, a creature that looked like a giant insect with crystal wings. Where do they fit in our formation? Korath waved his clawed hand dismissively. They have one ship. Put them in the rear. Perhaps they can pick up survivors after we win the battle. Laughter rippled through the room. I have a different suggestion, Una said. The laughter stopped. Korath turned to look at her with narrow eyes. You have a suggestion, human? Please, share your wisdom with us. We are eager to learn from your vast military experience. More quiet laughter. Una ignored it. Let us go first, she said. Give us a head start of 6 hours. We enter the swarm alone. We find the core. We destroy it. If we succeed, you do not need to fight at all. The room exploded with noise. Commanders shouted in disbelief. Some laughed harder than before. Others just shook their heads. You want to go first? Korath said when the noise died down. Into the swarm? With one ship? Yes. And you think you can find the core and destroy it before millions of swarm creatures tear you apart? Yes. Korath stepped closer to Una. He towered over her nearly 3 times her size. His reptilian face twisted into what might have been a smile or a snarl. Human, I have fought in 17 wars. I have commanded fleets of 10,000 ships. I have destroyed enemies that your species cannot even imagine. And you stand here, telling me that your tiny ship can do what my entire fleet cannot? Yes, Una said again. Why? Korath demanded. Why do you think you can succeed where we would fail? Una looked up at the giant Draxian general. She did not blink. She did not look away. Because we are not trying to survive, she said. The room went quiet. I do not understand, Korath admitted. Your fleet is designed to survive, Una explained. Your ships have shields and armor and escape pods. Your soldiers are trained to fight and retreat and fight again. You want to win, yes. But you also want to come home. You want to see your families. You want to live. Of course we do, Korath said. What is wrong with wanting to live? Nothing, Una said. But it changes the way you fight. Every decision you make is balanced between victory and survival. You take fewer risks. You protect yourselves. You hold back. And your crew? Korath asked. They do not want to live? Una smiled. It was the same sad smile that Ambassador Juan had worn at the council meeting. My crew knows they are going to die, she said. We accepted that before we volunteered for this mission. We are not trying to survive. We are only trying to succeed. That is the difference. Admiral Plix slithered forward, his tentacles writhing. This is nonsense. Death is death. How does accepting death make you more effective? Because fear uses energy, Hana said. She was the science officer, usually quiet during military discussions. But now she spoke with confidence. Your soldiers spend mental and physical resources on fear, on planning for retreat, on hoping to survive. We do not have that burden. Every bit of our energy, every thought, every action is focused on one thing, reaching the core. It is still suicide, Velo said. But his voice was softer now, less certain. Yes, Una agreed. It is. But it is purposeful suicide. Meaningful suicide. We are not throwing our lives away. We are spending them on something worthwhile. General Korath stared at the human captain for a long moment. The other commanders watched in silence. Your species is strange, Korath finally said. In my culture, a warrior's goal is to kill enemies and return home with honor. Death in battle is acceptable, but only if unavoidable. You humans, you treat death like a tool, like a weapon. We do, Yuna admitted, because sometimes it is the only weapon strong enough. Korath turned to look at the holographic display again. The void swarm filled the screen, dark and terrible. If you fail, he said, we launch our attack as planned. Of course. And if you succeed? If by some miracle you destroy the core? Yuna looked at her crew. Tay, the pilot who would fly them through hell. Su, the engineer who would keep the ship together. Yun, who would guide them to their target. All of them. Every single one. Ready to die. If we succeed, Yuna said, then our deaths will have meaning, and the galaxy will be safe. You will not survive, Korath pressed. Even if you destroy the core, the explosion will kill you. The swarm will kill you. There is no scenario where you come back. We know. Korath shook his massive head. I have met many brave soldiers in my life, but I have never met anyone like you. I do not know if you are the bravest people I have ever seen or the most insane. Maybe both, Tay said with a small grin. It was the first time any of the other crew members had spoken. Korath looked at the young pilot. You are barely an adult. You have your whole life ahead of you. Why would you choose to die? Tay's grin faded into something more serious. My mother died when I was young. My father raised me alone on a small farming moon. He always told me that life is not measured by how long you live, but by what you do with the time you have. I have had 23 good years, and now I have a chance to give everyone else in the galaxy 1,000 more. How could I say no to that? The warning came at midnight on the space station called Unity. Every alarm screamed at once. Red lights flashed in every hallway. Every species on the station woke up from their sleep. Something terrible was coming. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, leaders from 40 different worlds gathered around a massive table made of crystal. The table showed a map of the galaxy, and on that map, a dark cloud was moving. It was eating everything in its path. High Commander Velos of the Centauri people stood at the head of the table. His blue skin looked pale under the emergency lights. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he studied the data coming in from deep space. The void swarm has awakened, he said. His voice was heavy with fear. Our outer colonies are already gone. 12 planets. Billions of lives. All consumed in 3 days. The room fell silent. Every leader looked at the dark cloud on the map. It was not just an army. It was a force of nature. The void swarm was made of millions of creatures that lived only to eat. They ate planets. They ate stars. They ate everything. Ambassador Plix of the Meridian Empire raised one of his long tentacles. How long until they reached the core worlds? 60 days, Velos answered. Maybe less. Fear spread through the room like a cold wind. 60 days was not enough time. Not nearly enough. We must combine our forces, said General Korath of the Draxian Federation. He was a tall creature with scales like armor. Every ship we have. Every soldier. We throw everything at them. The other leaders nodded. This made sense. The void swarm was massive. They needed to be massive too. The Draxian Federation will send 5,000 warships, Korath declared proudly. The Meridian Empire will match that number, Plix added. 5,000 of our finest vessels. One by one, each species made their promise. The Centauri offered 3,000 ships. The Veluxian Hive contributed 8,000 smaller fighters. The Paraxian Collective promised 2,000 heavy battle cruisers. The numbers grew and grew. In the corner of the room, sitting quietly at a small table, was the human delegation. There were only 3 of them. Ambassador Juan was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes. Beside him sat a woman named Yuna, wearing a military uniform. The third was a young man called Tay, who was taking notes on a small device. As the other species announced their massive fleets, nobody paid attention to the humans. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago. They were still considered newcomers. Children, really. Their technology was impressive for such a young species, but they had no great fleets, no massive armies. They were small. Finally, after every other species had spoken, High Commander Velos turned to the human table. He tried to hide his doubt, but it showed on his face. "And what will humanity contribute to this fight?" he asked. Ambassador Juan stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, but something about him commanded attention. The room grew quiet. "Humanity will send 1 ship, Juan said. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then, laughter broke out across the great hall. General Korav's scales rattled as he laughed. Ambassador Plix's tentacles shook with amusement. Even High Commander Velos could not hide his smile. "1 ship?" Korath said between laughs. "Against the Void Swarm?" "Human, the swarm has consumed entire star systems. 1 ship would not last 10 seconds. Juan did not react to the laughter. He simply stood there, waiting. Yuna remained seated, her face like stone. Tay continued taking notes as if nothing unusual was happening. "Perhaps you misunderstand the situation," Velos said gently, trying to be kind. "We appreciate humanity's desire to help. But this is not a fight where symbolic gestures matter. We need real military power." "It is not a symbolic gesture," Juan replied. "It is our strategy." More laughter. This time, it was louder. "Your strategy?" Plix said. "Sending 1 ship against millions of swarm creatures is not a strategy. It is suicide." "Perhaps," Juan said. "But it is the human way." General Korath stopped laughing. He leaned forward, his reptilian eyes narrowing. "Explain yourself, human. What possible good can 1 ship do?" Juan looked around the room. He looked at the fleets being promised. Thousands and thousands of ships. Millions of soldiers. Trillions of credits worth of weapons and technology. And yet, he saw something else too. He saw fear. Deep, terrible fear. "Tell me, General," Juan said. "In all your history, have you ever defeated the Void Swarm?" Korath's scales stiffened. "No one has ever defeated the swarm. They have appeared 3 times in recorded history. Each time, they consumed everything until they simply stopped, went dormant. We do not know why." "So your plan," Juan continued, "is to throw your fleets at them and hope they get tired of eating?" The room went silent again. This time, there was no laughter. "We will weaken them," Velos said defensively. "Slow them down. By time for evacuation, how many will die in your fleets?" Juan asked. Nobody answered. Millions? Tens of millions? And in the end, will it matter? What choice do we have? Plix demanded. "We cannot simply do nothing." "I am not suggesting you do nothing," Juan said. "I am suggesting you let humanity handle this differently." Yuna stood up then. She was younger than Juan, but there was something ancient in her eyes. Something that had seen too much death and had made peace with it. "My name is Captain Yuna," she said. "I will command the ship we send. It is called the Talon. My crew is 12 people. We have studied the Void Swarm for the past 3 years. We know things about them that your scientists have not discovered." "Such as?" Velos asked. Yuna looked at the map on the crystal table. She pointed at the dark cloud of the swarm. "They are not just creatures," she said. They are connected. Every single one of them shares one mind, one consciousness. There is a core at the center of the swarm, a brain, if you want to call it that. Kill the core, and every creature in the swarm dies. This caused a stir in the room. Scientists from different species began talking among themselves. Could this be true? We have suspected something similar, a Centauri scientist admitted. But we could never confirm it. The swarm is too large. The core could be anywhere. We know where it is, Una said simply. How? Korath demanded. Una smiled. It was a sad smile. Because we sent people to find out. Good people. They did not come back. But they sent us the data before they died. The room fell silent once more. The humans had already sacrificed lives to gather information. Not ships. Not weapons. Lives. Even if you know where the core is, Bellows said slowly, how can one ship reach it? The swarm has millions of creatures. They will destroy any ship that approaches. That is our concern, Juan said. Not yours. This is madness, Korath said. We cannot bet the fate of the galaxy on one ship. Then do not bet on us, Juan replied. Send your fleets. Fight your battles. But let us do what we do best. And what is that? Plix asked. Juan looked at Una. She nodded slightly. Then he turned back to face the council. Humans are not like your species, he said. We are not stronger. We are not smarter. We do not have better technology. But we have something else. Something that has defined our species since we first walked on our world. And what is that? Velos asked. We are willing to die, Juan said simply. Not because we want to. Not because we have no choice. But because we understand that sometimes one life given freely is worth more than 1,000,000 lives taken by force. The alien leaders did not understand. Their cultures valued survival above all else. To them, death was always a defeat, never a victory. Your crew will die, Korath said. All 12 of them. Yes, Una answered. We know, and you still volunteer for this mission. Every member of my crew asked to be here, Una said. We have families. We have dreams. We have futures we will never see. But we also have a duty. Not to humanity. To everyone. To every species in this galaxy. To every child who deserves to grow up without fear of the swarm. Tay, the young man who had been silent until now, finally spoke. On Earth, there is an old saying. Greater love has no one than this. To lay down one's life for one's friends. We do not see you as aliens. We see you as friends. And for friends, we are willing to give everything. The Great Hall was quiet. For the first time, the alien leaders were not laughing. They were thinking. High Commander Velos looked at the human delegation with new eyes. These small, fragile creatures from a young world. They were not naive. They were not foolish. They were something else entirely. You truly believe you can destroy the swarm's core? Velos asked. We believe we can try, Juan said. And trying is all anyone can do. Velos looked at the other leaders. There was still doubt on their faces. But there was also something new. Curiosity. Maybe even hope. Very well, Velos said. Humanity will contribute one ship. The Talon, commanded by Captain Una. May the stars guide your path. Una bowed her head. Thank you, High Commander. As the meeting ended and the alien leaders filed out, many of them looked at the humans with strange expressions. Some still thought they were crazy. Others were not so sure anymore. General Korath stopped beside Ambassador Juan. I do not understand your species, he admitted. Juan smiled. That is okay, General. Most days, we do not understand ourselves either. But we know one thing for certain. What is that? We know that when everything else fails, One person can make a difference. One ship, one crew, one moment of courage. That is the human way. Korath looked at Yuna, who was already walking toward the door, her mind. The core was alive. Captain Yuna had seen images of it before. She had studied the data. She had prepared herself mentally for what she would see. But nothing could have prepared her for the reality. The core was massive, easily 100 kilometers across. It looked like a brain, if a brain could be made of darkness and hunger. Veins of green energy pulsed across its surface, carrying signals to every creature in the swarm. It was the mind that controlled millions of monsters. The heart that pumped death through the galaxy. And the talon was flying straight toward it. 20 seconds to detonation, Sue announced. Her voice was steady, but Yuna could see sweat running down her face. The engineer was hunched over the bomb controls, making constant adjustments to keep the weapon stable. Find us the best target point, Yuna ordered. The navigator's fingers danced across her console. Data flooded her screens as she analyzed the core structure. There, Yoon said, pointing at a spot on the main display. Near the center. That is where the energy is strongest. If we detonate there, the explosion will spread through the entire core before it can regenerate. Tay, can you get us there? The pilot did not answer with words. He simply adjusted their course, pushing the dying ship toward the target. The engine screamed in protest. The hull groaned under the strain. But the Talon kept moving. 15 seconds. The swarm had finally realized what was happening. Drones were flooding toward them from every direction. Guardians were powering up their weapons. The three Titans were closing in from behind, their massive bodies blocking out the stars. But it was too late. The humans were too close. They're trying to communicate with us, Mina said suddenly. Her eyes were wide with shock. The core. It is sending a signal directly to our ship. What does it say? Yuna asked. Mina listened to the signal for a moment. Then she looked at her captain with something like amazement. It is afraid, she said. The core is afraid of us. In all the millions of years the Void Swarm had existed, it had never felt fear. It had consumed worlds and civilizations and entire species. Nothing had ever threatened it. Nothing had ever come close. Until now. Until 12 humans in a broken ship decided to fight back. 10 seconds. June, Yuna said. Clear us a path. The weapons officer opened fire one last time. Missiles and energy beams tore through the drones, blocking their way. The explosions created a tunnel of fire and light, just big enough for the Talon to pass through. 5 seconds. Tay pushed the ship forward. The target point was right ahead. They were going to make it. Then everything went wrong. The core lashed out with a tendril of energy, a desperate last attack. It struck the Talon directly, tearing through the damaged hull like paper. The ship split in half, pieces spinning away into the darkness. Yuna was thrown from her seat. She hit the wall hard, pain exploding through her body. Around her, the bridge was in chaos. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. Emergency lights flashed red. The air was filling with smoke. Report, she shouted, pulling herself back to her feet. We are breaking apart. Sue screamed. The bomb. I lost control of the bomb. Where is it? Sue checked her readings, her hands shaking. It was thrown clear when the ship split. It is still active, still counting down, but it is drifting away from the target point. Yuna looked at the main screen. Through the cracks and static, she could see the bomb floating in space. It was slowly moving away from the core, pushed by the force of the explosion. If it detonated now, it would not be close enough. The core would survive. How long? Yuna asked. 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Not enough time to do anything. Not enough time to save the mission. But then, Tay spoke. "The escape pod," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. "I can use the escape pod to push the bomb back to the target." Yuna understood immediately. "Tay, no. There is no other way, Captain." The pilot was already moving toward the pod. "The bomb needs to be at the target point. Someone has to guide it there. The escape pod cannot survive that close to the detonation. You will be killed instantly." Tay stopped at the door of the pod. He turned back to look at his captain, his crewmates, his friends. "We were all going to die anyway," he said with a small smile. "At least this way, my death means something. Tay." Yuna's voice broke. She wanted to stop him. She wanted to find another way. But there was no other way. And she knew it. "Tell my father I loved him," Tay said. "Tell him I am sorry I could not come home. But tell him I did not run away. I ran toward something. Something important." He climbed into the escape pod and sealed the door. 2 seconds, Sue whispered. Through the shattered window, they watched the tiny pod launch from what remained of the Talon. Tay flew directly toward the bomb, his engines burning at maximum. He caught up to the drifting weapon and pushed it with the nose of his pod, guiding it back toward the target point. "Come on," June said, his voice barely audible. "Come on, Tay." The pod and the bomb moved together, getting closer and closer to the center of the core. The green energy of the core lashed out, trying to stop them. But Tay was too good. He dodged and weaved, just like he had done all his life. One last flight. One last dance with death. "Target point reached," Yoon announced. The bomb detonated. For a moment, there was nothing. Just silence and stillness, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then the darkness came. A sphere of absolute black expanded from the point of detonation. It was the singularity, the temporary black hole that would consume everything within its reach. It swallowed the escape pod instantly. Tay was gone before he even knew it was happening. Then it reached the core. The Void Swarm's mind screamed. The sound was not heard with ears, but felt with souls. Every creature in the galaxy that had any connection to the swarm felt that scream. It was pain and fear and rage all mixed together. It was the death cry of something that had never died before. The singularity tore through the core, ripping it apart at the atomic level. The green energy flickered and pulsed wildly, trying to regenerate, trying to survive. But the black hole was relentless. It consumed everything. The core, the energy, the consciousness that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. 3 seconds. That was all it took. Then the singularity collapsed on itself, just as Sue had designed. The black hole vanished, leaving behind nothing but empty space. The core was gone, and across the entire swarm, millions of creatures began to die. On what remained of the Talon, the crew watched in stunned silence. The drones that had been attacking them suddenly stopped moving. They drifted aimlessly, their connection to the hive mind severed. The Guardians went dark, their weapons powering down. Even the mighty Titans began to fall apart, their bodies breaking down without the core's energy to sustain them. "It worked," Mina said, tears streaming down her face. "It actually worked." "Tay did it," Yoon added. "He saved us all." But the victory came at a cost. The Talon was destroyed. Half the crew was dead or dying, and they were stranded in the middle of what used to be the Void Swarm, with no way to call for help. Yuna looked around at her surviving crew. Sue was injured but alive, clutching her arm where a piece of metal had cut her. Yoon was bleeding from a wound on her forehead. Mina was crying. June was unconscious, but breathing. The others were scattered around the broken bridge, some moving, some not. Who is alive? Yuna called out. I am here, Sue answered. Here, Yoon said. Still breathing, Mina added. One by one, voices answered. Sue, Yoon, Mina, June, who had just woken up. Hana, trapped under a fallen beam but unhurt. Q, who had a broken leg. Day, already moving to help the injured despite his own wounds. But some voices did not answer. Bio, Yuna called. Ara? Jun? Silence. Yuna found them in the wreckage. Bio was near the back of the bridge, killed instantly when the wall collapsed. Ara was beside the engineering console, still holding the tool she had been using to help Sue. Jun was near the window, his body broken, but his face peaceful. 4 crew members dead. Tae, Bio, Ara, Jun. 4 people who would never go home. Yuna knelt beside them, one by one, and closed their eyes. You did well, she told them. You did so well. Day limped over to stand beside his captain. We need to seal the hull breaches. We are losing atmosphere. Can we do it? With what we have left? Maybe, for a few hours. Then do it. Keep everyone alive as long as you can. Day nodded and went to work. The surviving crew moved slowly, painfully, doing what needed to be done. They sealed breaches with emergency patches. They treated wounds with limited medical supplies. They huddled together in the one section of the ship that still had air. Will they find us? Q asked. His leg was splinted, but he was pale from blood loss. The fleet saw our position before we entered the swarm, Yuna said. When they see the swarm dying, they will come. Will they come in time? Yuna looked at the stars through the cracked window. The swarm was still falling apart around them. Creatures floated lifeless in every direction. The nightmare was over. I do not know, she admitted. But we did what we came to do. Whatever happens now, we succeeded. Sue laughed weakly. It was a strange sound in the devastated ship. We actually did it. 12 humans against the void swarm. And we won. Not without a price, Yoon said quietly. The room was completely silent. Even the commanders who had laughed before now looked at the young human with something approaching respect. We are not heroes. Yuna nodded that there was really a dawn in space. But Captain Yuna had set the ship's internal lights to simulate sunrise. It was a small thing, a reminder of home. A reminder of what they were fighting for. The crew gathered on the bridge as Tae guided the ship away from Station Omega. Through the windows, they could see the massive combined fleet growing smaller behind them. 28,000 warships waiting, watching, wondering if they would ever see the little human ship again. Communications from the fleet, Mina reported. General Karath is wishing us good luck. Tell him thank you, Yuna said. And tell him to be ready. If we fail, they need to fight. Mina nodded and sent the message. The Talon accelerated toward the edge of known space. Ahead of them, still far away but growing closer, was the void swarm. On the ship sensors, it looked like a storm cloud. A wall of darkness stretching across the stars. 6 hours to contact, announced. She was sitting at the navigation console, her fingers moving across the controls with practiced ease. I have plotted the fastest route to the core location. Show me, Yuna ordered. A holographic map appeared in the center of the bridge. The void swarm filled most of it, a massive red blob that pulsed like a heartbeat. In the very center of the blob was a small blue dot. The core, Yoon explained. According to the data our scouts sent back, it is located here, approximately 50,000 kilometers deep inside the swarm. That is a long way, Jun said. He was the tactical analyst, always thinking about problems and solutions. We will have to fly through the densest part of the swarm to reach it. What kind of resistance can we expect? Yuna asked. Jun pulled up more data on his console. The swarm is made of different types of creatures. The most common are what we call drones. They are small, about the size of this ship, and they attack in huge numbers. They are not very smart, but they are fast, and they have sharp claws that can tear through hull plating. He changed the display to show a larger creature. These are guardians. They are about 10 times bigger than drones. They have energy weapons built into their bodies. They stay deeper in the swarm, protecting the more important areas. The display changed again. This time, it showed something truly massive. A creature the size of a small moon, covered in spines and weapons. And these are titans, Jung continued. There are only a few dozen of them in the entire swarm, but each one is powerful enough to destroy a battlecruiser. They guard the core directly. The bridge was quiet as everyone studied the enemy they would face. So, Tay said from the pilot's seat, "We fly through millions of drones, dodge the guardians, somehow get past the titans, and then destroy the core. Easy." Despite the tension, a few people laughed. Tay had a gift for making things seem lighter than they were. "How will we destroy the core?" Q asked. He was the security chief, more concerned with practical matters. Yuna looked at Sue. "Tell him about the weapon." Sue stood up and walked to a panel on the wall. She pressed a button, and a section of the floor opened. Rising from below was a device about the size of a person. It was smooth and black, covered in complicated patterns that seemed to shift and move. "This is the Singularity Bomb," Sue explained. "Humanity has been working on it for 10 years. It creates a temporary black hole that collapses on itself after exactly 3 seconds. "A black hole?" Day said, his eyes wide. "That sounds extremely dangerous." "It is," Sue admitted. "In those 3 seconds, it will consume everything within a radius of 500 kilometers, including us, if we are still nearby." "Will it be enough to destroy the core?" Hannah asked. Sue nodded. "Based on our analysis of the core structure, yes. The core is organic. It cannot survive being torn apart at the molecular level." "And the rest of the swarm?" Yuna asked. "If the core dies, every creature connected to it will die too. Their shared consciousness will collapse. They will simply stop." The crew absorbed this information. A weapon that could end the swarm forever, but also a weapon that would certainly kill them all. "Has it been tested?" Bio asked quietly. Sue hesitated. "Once, on a small scale. It worked, but..." She looked at Yuna. "But there were problems," Yuna finished. "The detonation sequence is unstable. If anything goes wrong during the approach, the bomb could explode early. Or it could fail completely. What are the odds of success?" June asked. Sue took a deep breath. 30%. Maybe less." Silence fell over the bridge. 30%. Less than 1 in 3. "That is better than 0, Tay said finally. "And 0 is what everyone else has." "He is right," Yoon agreed. "No other weapon in the galaxy can destroy the core. We are the only chance." Yuna looked at each member of her crew. These people had known the risks from the beginning. They had volunteered anyway. And now, faced with the hard numbers, none of them looked afraid. Determined, yes. Serious, yes. But not afraid. "We stick to the plan," Yuna said. "Tay gets us through the swarm. Yoon keeps us on course. Sue keeps the ship running and the bomb stable. Everyone else does their job. We fly in, we plant the bomb, we win. And then we die," Era added softly. "And then we die," Yuna confirmed. "But we die knowing that we saved everyone. That is more than most people ever get." The hours passed slowly. The crew ate a meal together in the small dining area. They talked about their homes, their families, the lives they were leaving behind. June, the weapons officer who rarely spoke, surprised everyone by pulling out a small photograph. It showed a woman and 2 children standing in front of a house with a garden. "My wife and daughters," he said. "They think I am on a routine patrol mission." I could not tell them the truth. "Why not?" Bio asked. June looked at the photograph with love in his eyes. "Because they would have tried to stop me, and I would have let them. I am not as brave as I pretend to be. I needed to go before they could change my mind." "Will they be okay?" Mina asked. June nodded. "Humanity takes care of the families of soldiers who do not return. They will be provided for. They will be told I died a hero." He paused. "I hope they can forgive me someday." Others shared their stories too. Hannah talked about her mother, who had Alzheimer's disease and no longer recognized her. Q talked about his younger brother, who had always looked up to him. They talked about the patients he had saved over the years and the ones he had lost. Every story was different. Every person had their own reasons for being here. But they all shared one thing in common. They had decided that some things were worth more than their own lives. When the meal was over, Una stood up. 2 hours to contact, she announced. "Everyone to battle stations. From now on, we do not stop until the job is done." The crew moved to their positions. Tay settled into the pilot's chair, his hands resting lightly on the controls. Yoon pulled up the navigation data. Sue went to check on the singularity bomb one more time. June powered up the weapon systems. On the main screen, the void swarm grew larger. It was close enough now to see individual shapes moving in the darkness. Millions of creatures swimming through space like fish in an ocean of death. "They have detected us," Mina reported. "A group of drones is breaking off from the main swarm. Heading our way. How many?" Una asked. Mina checked her readings. "About 5,000. 5,000 creatures. Against one ship." "Tay," Una said. "Show them what humans can do." Tay grinned. "Yes, Captain." The Talons surged forward, engines burning bright. Tay's hands moved across the controls in a blur. The ship rolled, dived, and twisted as the first drones came into range. "June, fire at will," Una ordered. The ship's weapons came alive. Energy beams and missiles shot out into the swarm of incoming creatures. Drones exploded left and right. But for every one destroyed, 10 more took its place. "They are trying to surround us," Jun called out. "Recommend we punch through the center before they close the trap." "Do it," Una said. Tay pushed the engines harder. The Talons shot forward like a bullet. Drones scattered before them, unable to match their speed. Those that got close were torn apart by June's weapons. "We are through the first wave," Yoon reported. "But more are coming. A lot more." On the sensors, the entire swarm seemed to be shifting. Creatures that had been moving in random patterns were now turning toward the small human ship. They had noticed the intruder. They were angry. "Sue, how is the bomb?" Una asked. "Stable for now," Sue replied from the engineering section. "But the energy readings are fluctuating. I need to keep adjusting the containment field. Do whatever you need to do. That bomb is our only weapon." The Talon flew deeper into the swarm. The darkness around them grew thicker. Creatures were everywhere now, filling the space like a living wall. "Guardian ahead," Mina shouted. A massive shape loomed out of the darkness. The Guardian was huge, covered in armor, plating, and pulsing with energy. Its weapons began to glow as it targeted the tiny human ship. "Evasive maneuvers," Una ordered. Tay threw the ship into a spin just as the Guardian fired. A beam of energy shot past them, close enough to scorch the hull. June returned fire, but his weapons barely scratched the creature's armor. "We cannot beat it head-on," June said. "We need to go around." "There is no around," June replied, her voice tight. "There are Guardians everywhere. The only way is through." Tay gritted his teeth. Then through it is. They aimed the ship direct. No, Yuna agreed. Not without a price. But that is the human way. We pay the price that needs to be paid. And we do it willingly. Hours passed. The air grew thin. The cold crept in. The survivors huddled together, sharing warmth. Shar, the rescue ships, found them 14 hours later. General Korath himself led the search party. His massive cruiser pushed through the drifting remains of the void swarm, past millions of dead creatures. Following the last known coordinates of the Talon, when they found the wreckage, Korath stood in silence on his bridge. The little human ship was barely recognizable. Half of it was gone completely. The other half was covered in burn marks and claw scratches and damage that should have destroyed any vessel. But somehow, impossibly, life signs were still coming from inside. Get them out, Korath ordered. Now, the rescue was slow and careful. The surviving crew members were weak, cold, and running out of air. But they were alive. 8 of them. 8 survivors out of 12. When Captain Yuna was carried onto the Draxian ship, she looked up at General Korath and smiled. Did it work? She asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Korath stared down at the small human woman. This fragile creature, covered in blood and wounds, who had just destroyed the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Yes, he said. It worked. The swarm is dead. Every single creature. The core is gone. You saved everyone. Yuna closed her eyes. Good. That is good. Then she passed out. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. The void swarm was destroyed. Not by the combined fleet of 28,000 ships. Not by the military might of 12 species. By one ship. One human ship with 12 crew members, only 8 of whom survived. At first, nobody believed it. It seemed impossible. How could one ship do what no fleet had ever accomplished? How could a handful of humans defeat an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years? But the evidence was undeniable. The swarm was gone. The wreckage of the Talon was recovered. The bodies of the fallen crew were found and honored. And the survivors told their story. Ambassador Wan arrived at Station Omega 3 days after the battle. The combined fleet was still gathered there, waiting for news, struggling to understand what had happened. When Wan walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, every leader rose to their feet. High Commander Velos spoke first. Ambassador Wan, we have seen the reports. We have heard the stories. But we still do not understand. How did they do it? Wan walked slowly to the crystal table at the center of the room. The holographic display showed the sector where the swarm had been. It was empty now. Nothing but stars and silence. You want to know how they did it, Wan said. That is the wrong question. The question you should ask is why. Why did they do it? Why did they volunteer to die? Then tell us, Korath said. The general was different now. The mockery was gone from his voice. In its place was something deeper, respect, maybe even awe. Wan looked around the room. Every alien leader was watching him, waiting. Humans are not special, Wan began. We are not stronger than you. We are not smarter. We do not have better technology or ancient wisdom or magic powers. We are just people. Ordinary people living ordinary lives on an ordinary world. He paused. But we have something that you do not. We have the willingness to die for strangers. Not because we want to die. Not because we do not value life. But because we understand that sometimes the most important thing is not living. It is making sure others can live. Admiral Plix's tentacles twitched. We value life as well. We value the survival of our species. You value your species, Wan corrected gently. You fight to protect your own people, your own worlds. your own children. And there is nothing wrong with that. It is natural. It is instinct. But humans are different? Humans are strange, Juan admitted with a small smile. We adopt children who are not ours. We protect animals that cannot repay us. We send aid to nations that were once our enemies. We build hospitals in countries we will never visit. We do things that make no logical sense over and over again, simply because they feel right. He gestured at the empty space on the display, where the swarm had been. When my crew flew into that darkness, they were not fighting for humanity. They were fighting for everyone. Draxians, Meridians, Centauri, Biluxians, species they had never met, species they would never know. They gave their lives for strangers, because to humans, there are no strangers. Just people who have not been helped yet. The room was completely silent. Captain Yuna told me something before she left, Juan continued. She said that humans have a choice that other species do not understand. We can choose to care about people we have never met. We can choose to love people we will never see. We can choose to sacrifice everything for someone we do not know, simply because they exist and they matter. That is irrational, Velo said quietly. But there was no judgment in his voice, only wonder. Yes, Juan agreed. It is completely irrational. It makes no evolutionary sense. It offers no survival advantage. And yet, humans have been doing it for thousands of years. Every time there is a disaster, humans rush toward the danger to help. Every time there is a war, humans volunteer to fight for the innocent. Every time there is suffering, humans try to end it, even at great cost to themselves. Why? Korath asked. The question came out almost desperately, like a student begging to understand a profound truth. Juan thought for a moment. Because we believe in something bigger than ourselves, he said finally. We believe that the universe is not just a cold, empty place. We believe that connection matters. That kindness matters. That love matters, even between strangers. And we are willing to die for that belief. He looked at each alien leader in turn. That is why we sent one ship. Because one ship full of humans who believe in something is more powerful than 1,000,000 ships, full of soldiers who were just following orders. Our crew did not fight because they were told to. They fought because they wanted to, because they believed in the cause with every fiber of their being. And that belief gave them strength that no weapon can match. The holographic display flickered. A new image appeared. It was a photograph of the crew of the Talon, taken before the mission. 12 humans standing in front of their small ship, smiling at the camera. Tay, the young pilot with dreams in his eyes. Su, the engineer who kept everything running. Yoon, the navigator who always knew the way. June, the weapons officer who never missed. Mina, who heard what others could not. Day, who healed what others had broken. Hana, who understood what others could not see. Q, who protected what others could not defend. Bio, the youngest, full of hope and potential. Era, always smiling, even in darkness. June, who found weakness where others saw only strength. And Yuna, the captain who led them all. These are the people who saved the galaxy, Juan said. 4 of them died in the battle. The rest survived, barely. But all 12 of them were willing to give everything. And that willingness is what made the difference. General Korath stepped forward. His massive form loomed over the human ambassador, but there was no threat in his posture. Only humility. I laughed at you, Korath said. I mocked your one ship. I called your plan suicide. I was wrong. Not just wrong about your strategy. Wrong about everything I thought I knew about strength and courage and what it means to be a warrior. He placed his clawed hand over his heart. A Draxian gesture of deepest respect. The humans of the Talon are greater warriors than any I have ever known. Greater than any stories tell. They fought not for glory or territory or survival. They fought for love. And love, it seems, is the most powerful weapon in the universe. Around the room, other leaders followed Korath's example. They placed hands or tentacles or appendages over their hearts. They bowed their heads. They honored the humans who had saved them all. What happens now? Velos asked. Juan looked at the image of the crew one more time. Now, we remember. We tell their story. We make sure that every child in the galaxy knows what they did and why they did it. And maybe, someday, we learn from them. Maybe we learn to care about strangers. To fight for people we will never meet. To love without limits. Can other species learn such things? Plix asked doubtfully. I do not know, Juan admitted. But I hope so, because the Void Swarm was not the last threat the galaxy will face. There will be others. And when they come, we will need more than fleets and weapons. We will need courage. Real courage. The kind that comes from caring about something bigger than yourself. The meeting ended with a decision. The Galactic Council would build a memorial to the crew of the Talon. It would stand at the center of Station Omega, where everyone could see it. A reminder of what 12 humans had done. A reminder of what was possible when love was stronger than fear. But for Juan, the memorial was not enough. He traveled to Earth, to a small farming moon, to deliver news that would break a father's heart. Tay's father was an old man. His hands were rough from years of working the land. His face was weathered by sun and wind. When Juan told him what his son had done, the old man did not cry. He simply nodded, as if he had always known. He was a good boy, the father said, always helping others. Even when he was small, he would give away his food to hungry animals. His mother used to say he had too much heart. He saved the galaxy, Juan said. Everyone is alive because of him. The old man looked up at the stars. He did what he was.